where everybody or majority of sales reps look at funding. Many of that is going to be around venture funding. So anything that's backed by a VC or private equity, that's typically the go-to. But to start this off, debt financing is a very, very different way of looking at that from a growth perspective. And quite often this will be with fast growth startups, scale up companies that ultimately will obviously be in a lot of debt in terms of what their product and things where it's more looking at a long-term gain for that business. So what happens within this perspective is actually organizations will help finance that debt to bring that back closer to a net zero in terms of revenue and EBITDA, in order to buy into the longer opportunity of the business. So it is kind of as what it says on the tin, but ultimately what is happening within that, these are often large injections of cash, because probably a great example of this would be somebody like Klarna. They are looking at very much long-term gain with their model, where they are going out and they're financing opportunities for businesses. They have ran up huge volumes of debt, but obviously the longer term potential of that business is huge. So what we'll often see here are very large injections of cash, where investors or banks are looking to essentially buy into that longer term vision of that business. But as with anything, with that, they are expecting a return on that investment. And so this then very much goes into the larger play across that business, and again, fueling that future growth. So where they're able to claw back money on their P&L, they are then able to invest that once again back into their day-to-day operations. So whether that is around new tools, again, that the business needs to improve processes, procedures, and everything else in between, or whether that's actually adding to headcount to ultimately, focus on growing the revenues from day to day. So it's a very different aspect of funding, and one that not a lot of people really track, because where they'll look, as I said, is typically around the VC or PE funding. Debt financing is very, very different, but the major difference here is probably the volume of the cash that's being injected. Typically, with debt financing, it's probably going to be the biggest injection of cash outside of any other opportunity that's out there on the market.